Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day is going wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we are going to create 3 cards. We're using the My Monthly Hero Kit from Hero Arts. This is the February 2022 kit. We're going to take a look at everything that's in here, and then we are going to jump in and create some... I'm excited about some fun cards. I'm excited about this because this is kind of one of those stamp sets that's kind of out of my comfort zone. Only because there's a lot of strange things in here is all I can say. But I really love the fact that it's unique. And I love that it's kind of on a dreamy kind of a feel. And I mean, even just looking at the brochure that came with the kit, I'm excited about it because it's just unique. So let's take a look at our stamp set. I'm going to bring in some cardstock so you can see. And this is our stamp set this month. And it is unique. There is a door that's opened, and then there's some clouds in there. And then you get a beautiful mirror, kind of a circle frame. There's some butterflies floating in there. You get some steps kind of leading up to whatever you would like to be inside. There is an eye. And then there is a moon with a ribbon around there. And there's some fun filler and elements. There is like a rainfall behind the moon, which is pretty neat. You get a little window frame. And then you also get kind of like a melting clock, along with some smaller images like the hat and the fish and the apple. So I am excited to give some unique cards a go. There are coordinating dies that will die cut out all of the images here. The umbrella, the hat, the fish, the doorway, also the window, and even the little waterfall. It will die cut that out. So you get coordinating dies to go with that. Also included is a water flow brush. And then also there is a Daniel Smith watercolor dot palette. Love these dot palettes because it doesn't seem like there's that much there, but there's a lot of color on these little dot palettes, so we'll be using that for our project today. Now also there is some two sheets of black watercolor paper. I'm not going to be using this. I'm going to be bringing in some white, but this is also included in the kit. So let's jump in and get started. We are going to start by doing a little bit of stamping. So let's take our stamp set. I'm going to bring in my stamping positioner. And I'm bringing in some watercolor cardstock. And this is Tim Holtz's watercolor cardstock. I like it because the backside's smooth for one. And that, in fact, that's what we're going to be using to stamp our images. And there's a little bit of texture on the reverse side. But I like it because it's a white or a more white color versus traditional watercolor cardstock to start off with. And I'm going to use a smaller piece. I can add a little bit of adhesive behind my panel. I'm going to do all my stamping at once, and then we can color in our images. And then I'm going to treat my paper with my anti-static powder tool. And then we'll ink up our images with a VersaFine Onyx Black ink. We'll stamp this. I'm going to stamp it one more time. I'm going to go over my images with my clear embossing powder. We're going to heat emboss all at once, so I'll set that aside. I'm going to bring in another panel, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'll treat this with my anti-static powder tool, and then I'm going to clean off my stamp. I'm keeping all of the images here, all but the doorway, and then I did add the window pane. And we'll stamp this. And again, I'm using the reverse side of my watercolor cardstock. And then I'll flip my panel around. We'll stamp it once more. I may not use all of these, but it's always nice to have extra. We'll stamp this. We're gonna fill in this watercolor cardstock. So I do want 3 window panes. And I had a little extra room, so I threw in another hat, and an apple, and a fish, and I think that looks good. I'm going to go over this panel also with my clear embossing powder. When we watercolor, I like to do heat embossing because it kind of creates a kind of a well, and it contains my watercoloring. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure I'll probably make a mess of my watercoloring. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and set this aside. We'll grab our heat gun and we'll melt all this embossing powder. Okay, my images are all done. I'm going to zoom in and we are going to do a little bit of watercoloring. Okay, I'm going to do very basic watercoloring, but I do know that I'm going to use this Mayan dark blue, and I want to create like a background. I am going to use my spray bottle, and I'm going to spray my panel. I'm going to start off with this panel. I'm going to spray it with water, and then I'll pick up a little color, and then what I'm going to do is basically let this watercolor do all the work. And I'm just tapping it. That's the nice thing about watercolor. It kind of spreads on its own. I want to add a little bit more different color. I think, well, actually, no, I like the way that looks. I'm going to let this dry, but I do want to create a blue umbrella. Kind of let it trail up. And then I want to add a lighter color. I'm going to use the iridescent sapphire. How about that? Actually, that's not very... Let's add a little bit of this blue here. It's the middle one. This is blue hue. I'm not sure how to pronounce that first word. We'll add a little bit more blue color to our umbrella. I want to add a little bit of this blue too to our window panes. Oops. And I'm not worried about it going to outside the line over here because the die will probably cut that off. I'm going to clean off my brush in between here. Next, I do want some yellow. We're going to take the Mayan yellow. Look how pretty that is. I'm going to pick it up with my brush, and then I'm going to fill in these stars. I'm going to color one of these fish with that yellow also. Actually, we'll do all the big ones with the yellow. I'm going to create a red window pane. We're going to use the Kingman Green Turquoise Genuine for this umbrella. And then I did color in a few of the fish. I'm going to add some of this green. I think this green's real pretty. The sap green is really pretty, and I'm going to use that for our little hats. Okay, and then for the hat band, we're going to add some of this blue. I think we just about used all that manganese blue hue. Okay, coloring is all done. I'm going to go ahead and let these dry on their own. Sometimes they just dry better on their own. And in the meantime, we're going to do a little bit of die cutting. For my card today, I'm going to zoom back out. For my card today, I'm going to be using 2 die sets. And this one here is the Hero Arts Cloudy Sky Scene dies. Love this die set. It has 2 large dies that you can create a cloudy background with. And then there's also a little bird piece. I'm going to take that also. And then we're going to use the nested rectangle dies. I'm going to grab a... This is a piece of cardstock that is 5.5 inches tall, and it is just shy of 3 inches wide. I'm going to take, this is the 3rd smallest from the Infinity die set, and I'm going to create 3 windows in this panel. I'm going to create 2 on top. I'm going to leave a gap for a sentiment, and then I'm going to die cut out 1 more window on the bottom. And I'm just going to tape this down. The top 2 I'll kind of evenly space to create a window panel. Now on these pieces of cardstock, I'm going to do all my die cutting at once, but on one card I want like 3 layers of clouds. So I'll do that and then lower it, do another one, and then on another piece of cardstock I'll create another cloudy border, and I'll do the same with my last piece. For these little birds, I'm going to be using Hero Arts Nautical cardstock. It's a real dark blue. I think it goes really good with that ink that we used for our night sky. I'm going to die cut out these birds twice. While I was doing my die cutting, I went ahead and die cut out all of my images also. You can see here. There was a few places that I missed, so I had to go back in with my watercoloring and finish it up. This is actually the doorway. I forgot to do the doorway with the red, so I went back in and did that. And then I also forgot to do the umbrella bottom, the handle, so I went back in and did that also. But we have a lot of images here, and I think that looks good. This was my window that we created with the rectangle die. Again, we have that extra space here. And then rather than doing 3 of the cloudy borders, I ended up doing 4. I'm not sure if I'll use all 4, but I did 4 just in case for another card, and then 2 for my 3rd card. These are the little birdies that I die cut out with my nautical cardstock. And then again, I die cut out all my images. So for my first card, what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of ink blending. Let's set this aside. We're going to start off with this panel here. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to take a piece of cardstock. This is, let's see, about 1.25 inches, and I'm going to do a little ink blending using some Distress Oxide inks. I'm using peacock feathers, and I'm going to go around the side here. I'm not going to worry about the, oops, sorry about the shaky camera. I'm not worried about going all the way to the edge. I'm going to darken up the edges with Chipped Sapphire. Just because I want some nice dark edges here. We're going to go ahead and stamp our sentiment, and I chose the one in Dreams. We're planting seeds for our future. I think that's a really pretty one. And I'm going to use my nautical blue ink, just kind of keeping with the blue theme. We'll pick up some ink and we'll stamp it right in the center. Actually, I'm going to offset it a little bit here to the left. Once we have our sentiment stamped, I'm going to go ahead and flip this around, and we're going to add some foam adhesive behind here. Once we have a foam adhesive adhered behind, I wanted to create a background for our windows, and I thought this would be long enough, so it wasn't. So I did do one more piece here. What we're going to do is trim this. And then we can add this to our background. There we go. So we have some really pretty color behind here. I'm going to go ahead and use my tape runner and add some extra adhesive behind these panels. And then I have my card base, which is a standard A2 size card base. We're going to take a strip of that same nautical cardstock. This is a 1-inch strip. And I'm going to adhere this to the left of my card base. And then we can go ahead and add our window panes that we created. Now we get to add our bells and whistles. For this card, I wanted to use the umbrellas. And finally, we're going to add some clear. These are enamel dots, Hero Hues enamel dots. Kind of remind me of like little water droplets. And I think it will go nice with kind of like a watery theme or raindrops. Kind of goes with the umbrella. So we get the best of both worlds here. We'll add a few on the inside of those windows and a few on the outside. And then that finishes off card 1. For my next card, we're going to go ahead and create a cloudy scene. And for these, I'm going to go ahead and take some of my Distress Oxide ink and just do a little bit of shading on the bottom. I want kind of 2 tones, but I want to make sure that I leave some white. So we'll add a little color to these clouds, and then we'll add a little bit of our Chipped Sapphire also. Okay, I think that's going to work out good. Now let's go ahead and take our card base. For this one, all of my cards today actually are A2 in size. So we'll take our first panel here, and we'll add this directly to the top portion of our card base. And then for our second panel, I want to pop up with some foam adhesive. And then this one can go here. And then for my final layer, not sure which one I want to use, or if I want to use both. I think I want to use both, but this one I'm just going to directly adhere on the bottom here. And then my final layer, I'm going to add some foam adhesive, but I'm going to double up on my foam adhesive because this way, it is one level higher. So we'll double it up. On this panel is where we're going to stamp our sentiment. And for this card, I'm going to stamp, make your dreams a reality. Impossible. I think I want to stamp impossible is just an option. I think that's just really pretty. And I'm going to use that same Memento ink. This is Nautical Blue. And then we'll flip this over. Remove the release paper here. Add some adhesive. And this is going to go on the very bottom of our card base. So we have a few different levels you can see here. Kind of light and fluffy. Now for this card, I wanted to use the window panes. So we're going to flip these over and I'm going to add some foam tape behind here. Okay, now we have our little birds that we cut out. I'm going to go ahead and take my glue and let's add some birds in this sky. Okay, I think that just finishes up off. Makes it look even more light and airy. I'm going to go ahead and take my diamond stickles and we're going to go over the stars for a little added sparkle, a little glistening. And that finishes card number 2. For card number 3, we're going to do a little bit more ink blending using those same 2 colors. So we'll take a little bit of the peacock feathers. And we'll just add this. And this is Bristol Smooth cardstock. I chose this because this is going to be in the background. And it's just going to add a little bit more color here. And then we'll add some chipped sapphire. And then I'm going to use my spray bottle and we're going to add some water droplets to this. We'll let our ink kind of oxidize a little bit. Any excess I'll just pick up with my towel here. Okay, this panel we're going to go ahead and adhere to our card base. So we'll flip it around. And we'll just adhere this with our tape runner. And then we'll have our 2 little cloudy borders. For our first cloudy border, we are going to add some adhesive behind here. Give this a little bit of dimension. We'll put that in the top corner. And our bottom piece, before we adhere this, we're going to stamp our sentiment for this one. For this card, I'm going to stamp Beautiful Things Await You. I'm going to stamp this with my intense black ink here. And this is going to go in the center. We'll flip this over and we'll add this to the bottom of our panel. And then we're going to take our doorway. We'll flip this and add some adhesive behind here. And I think that looks really fun. That's the best thing about these kind of stamp sets. It's because you can just let your imagination go crazy. I just love that. I need to add a a hat down here. When I removed the tape, I actually lifted some of my watercolor paper, so I'm going to cover that up with a hat. We'll add some fish to our sky in the background. I think that looks pretty neat. Okay, we're going to definitely add a little bit of sparkle to these fish. And then maybe to the band of the hat also, just to make it a little bit more magical. And then I'm going to take some more of these little enamel dots and we're going to add some in the background. And then that will finish off this card number 3. And that completes my 3 projects today for Hero Arts, guys. I hope you enjoyed my projects. And again, I think this kit was so fun because the sky is the limit when it comes to creating with this. Literally, the sky is the limit. I hope you enjoyed my projects. I wish you a lovely day, and we will see you again real soon, guys. Bye-bye.